Rob, thanks so much for being here, brother, on the All Bets Are Off podcast. How you doing today?
I'm doing great, mate. Thanks for having me on the show. I appreciate it, mate.
Absolutely. And I have so much that I want to talk to you about, but I think my favorite starting point is generally where did you personally fall in love with rock and roll?
Ah, that's a good question. Well, I mean, I was a little kid when I first started listening to music. I was way before discovering kind of rock and roll. Um, I mean, I remember being kind of like 4 years old and absolutely loving music. My dad was a big country music fan. So I used to listen to a lot of his records with him when I was a little tiny little kid. He was also a big fan of the band ABBA, and I think that's where my love of melody and hooks and all that kind of stuff. I think that's where it started from, really, to be honest with you, the ABBA thing. So it was kind of like my dad listening to my dad's albums, and when I was really small, and then when I got a little bit older, my older sister was a massive Duran Duran fan,
Mm.
and through her, I really got into Duran Duran when I was kind of like 6 or 7 years old, and they kind of became my first sort of favorite band. I have posters on my wall, and I just loved Duran Duran when I was a little kid, and yeah, for some strange reason, I just was fascinated by drummers. I was like really into drums, and I wanted to be a drummer. Um, and basically, I asked my mom and dad for a drum kit every birthday and every Christmas, and that just they were having none of it. We lived in like a really small little house, neighbors, loads of neighbors, and they were just like, you just not having a drum kit. So eventually, my dad said, well, you can have a drum kit, but how about you play the guitar? We'll get you a guitar. So I got my first guitar when I was 9 years old, and then
Mm.
started taking lessons um, for about 4 or 5 years, and then from there, kind of went into starting to write songs. When I was about 11 years old, I started to kind of write my first little songs, and I started singing at that point as well. And then everything changed in 1986 for me when I heard the final countdown by Europe, which
Mm.
was a massive. Of course, this is light years before the internet, and I hadn't discovered rock magazines, and the UK was great, but it wasn't like the States where you had MTV and stuff like that. So the only music that I would be aware of was were the bands who were charting in the UK, and like I said, Europe went all the way to number one with the final countdown, and they were kind of like, that was the first time I was seeing guys with long hair and leather jackets and the huge drum kit and the stage and the pyro and all that kind of stuff. So suddenly all my Duran Duran posters came down, and then it was all Europe, and then about a month later I discovered Bon Jovi,
Mm.
and then in '87 it was Kiss and Def Leppard and Heart and Whitesnake, and then and then not long after that I started buying magazines, like Kerrang and Raw magazine and Metal Hammer, and that completely opened the doors to all the American bands that I got into, Poison and Warren and just the list goes on and on and on. So yeah, it started really young. I was a really young little kid when I wasn't like a lot of guys get into music and when they're kind of a teenager or whatever, but I was you know pretty small when I started listening to music.
I feel like every band that you just said, even going back to Duran Duran, I can hear in your music because of these really catchy hooks and melodies that just get stuck in your head and they don't leave. And that's what's great about Midnite City. But before I even get to that, when did you start playing in your first bands? Because you start playing instruments and writing songs at between 9 and 11 years old. So when does the itch start? Like, all right, I got to find some guys to jam with.
Well, I wanted to be in a band when I was like 9 years old, but there was nobody. I was kind of like the weirdo at school because nobody was into music at all. Everybody was into over here. Everyone's into football or soccer, as you guys would call it,
Mm.
and that's
Mhm.
if you that's what all the young lads were into, and I was just like by that point just completely obsessed with music, but
Mhm.
I didn't know anybody. So I used to do these little demos at home, and I obviously I didn't have a drum kit, so I would set up, pots and pans, and I would kind of like record myself playing the pots and pans drum kit. And then I would have two tape recorders, and I would
Mhm.
switch the tape over and press play on that one and press record on another. And then I would play guitar on top, and then I'd
Mhm.
switch them again you know, um, and sing on them. So by the time I got to about 12 or 13, I had like boxes full of these little demos, and I was so, itching to get in a band. But
Mhm.
I also grew up in a really small, tiny little town that was, there wasn't much going on there really for music. So the first band I got into when I was in high school, I eventually discovered about two or three of the guys who uh, were kind of into music and played a little bit. And so I joined as a drummer of basically the kind of like the school rock band.
Mm.
And we were just terrible. Like I can't even tell you how we were so bad that we didn't actually even have a bass player, because the two guitar players both felt that playing bass was beneath them. So we and I mean, we couldn't play, what I mean, but we went out unbelievably. We used to do like little, Christmas parties and birthday parties, and
Mm.
it would be a guy who was attempting to sing very, very badly, two guitar players and me on drums. So it must have sounded god awful, but that was the first one. So I was like I said, yeah, maybe about 13, 14 at that point. Um, and then left school, and then I formed my first sort of serious band when I was
Mm.
17. When I was also playing drums in that band, but also writing most of the songs, and that was kind of like my first. I got in a band with the rest of the guys in the band were a good like 4 or 5 years older than me, so they could really play. So it kind
Mhm.
of really, it was a good learning thing for me, because it really stepped me up, as of where I needed to be to play in a band with these guys, and that was also my first sort of experience of getting in a van and traveling up and down the country and playing in pubs and clubs, and that was really, that was great. That was a really good time. And I did that band for 5 years. We put out a
Oh.
CD in 1997, I think it was,
Mhm.
and then it just kind of went on from there. I just kind of evolved from there on, really.
I mean, I want to point out too, because I find this interesting, is, you wanted to be a drummer and you're playing guitar, and then you do end up being a drummer in a band. But if we could fast forward, when you joined Tigertailz, didn't you do a little bit of absolutely everything in your time with that band?
Yeah, it was, yeah, that was bizarre. Yeah, I mean, that was obviously much later. But I was, I played in a lot of bands and sang in bands, and because after Inside Out, I then I just got sick of carting the drums around, and I used to do a lot of singing, a lot of the backing vocals, and I was also writing all the songs in all the bands that I was in. So after that band, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna sing. I'm gonna get up front, and by that point as well, I think my confidence had got up, because when I was a little kid, I used to kind of like quite like playing drums, because I could hide behind them a little bit. I was quite a shy little kid, but by that point, I built up my confidence to get out front. But the Tigertailz thing was really interesting, because I mean, I was a massive fan of Tigertailz when I
Mm.
was like a teenager, because I was really into all, I still am, really into all my glam stuff. And I had posters of Tigertailz on my wall when I was like 14, 15 years old. So
Oh,
to
wow.
to actually get offered that job was incredible. And I actually got into the band via. It's really sad actually, because Ace Fincham has, passed away
Mm.
towards the end of last year. But it was Ace that got me in the band, and initially it was really bizarre, because they great band, but they've gone through a lot of lineup changes. And initially, I was hired as a rhythm guitar player. So joined as a rhythm guitar player. We went out, we did a European tour, and then that lineup kind of fell apart. So Jay Pepper, the original guitar player, said, "Okay, we want you to switch to bass. Will you switch to bass? We'll go back to being a 4-piece." And I was like, "Yeah, that's cool." So I switched to bass and played bass for probably about like 2 years, maybe 2 or 3 years, and then the singer left, and in I think it's 2015, and then they said, "Well, you know, we want you to sing." So and I was like, "Okay, yeah." I mean, that's kind of what I probably should have been doing from the start, really. But I kind of worked my way through the ranks, and actually, there's a funny story about that. Is when I first joined the band, we were going to I think we were going to Italy, and Ace, the drummer, somehow between the gate and getting on the plane, he mislaid his passport, so they wouldn't let him on the plane.
Oh wow!
So we were really late taking off. We'd all been in the bar drinking as usual, and so we were all ready to take off, and we don't have a drummer, and they actually shut the door of the plane, and we were about to leave, and Jay Pepper's just like freaking out, like, you know, we're going to end up. I think we had like three shows in Italy, and we didn't have a drummer. So, and they didn't really know me that well at that point. So, but I just said, well, I actually play drums, so we could probably just about, you know, get through the gigs. So I very nearly became the drummer at the last minute. Ace found his passport, and they actually let him on the plane. So,
oh wow!
But if it hadn't been for him finding his passport at the very last minute, I'd have played. I could have been in maybe the Guinness Book of Records or something, for like playing every instrument in a band.
For sure, for sure. When I saw that too, I was just like, that's pretty incredible that you did that. And you bounced around because you stayed with them for a long time. So it's just in different aspects of the band. So at what point do you decide that you're going to form Midnite City?
That was well, I'd had a band prior to that for well over 10 years, kind of like more of a kind of like a power pop type band, and that had come to that was coming to an end at the end of 2016, and I just wanted to put together in my head like the ultimate hair metal band, and that kind of music had started. Because in the 2000s, especially over here in the UK, I mean, you know, that kind, you know, the kind of music that we play. I mean, you know, you could play it, but you go out and play in front of 3 people, you know. So there just wasn't, people hated that kind of music, and I noticed as time was going by that, you know, slowly but surely, you know, that kind of music was sort of becoming quite cool again, you know, and it was music that, you know, I've loved my entire life, and, you know, you know, my favorite bands when I was like 12, 13 years old are still my favorite bands, you know, I've never changed. But so with that in mind, I started writing actually the first Midnite City album. So I'd actually written the entire album, and basically then went on a search for, you know, the right guys to get involved. And you know, the first guy I got on the table was Miles Meekin, the guitar player, who I actually found just sitting at home doing like YouTube guitar videos, and he was just like incredible, you know, such a great guitar player, and he looked cool as well, which is kind of like quite important for the band. I wanted it to have a, you know, I wanted everybody to kind of look like a rock star, really, you know.
Yeah.
So, which again, you know, not, you know, sometimes the image side of things gets pushed to one side, but I was really like adamant that the guys in the band needed to look a certain way. And so initially got Miles in, then Sean, the keyboard player, came next, and then Josh, the bass player, was last. And yeah, and then we just we did about 3 really good quality demos that were almost, I think they ended up actually being the pretty much the finished songs on the album.
Hmm.
sent them out to a bunch of quite a few labels, and ended up getting quite a few offers. And then we signed with a German label in 2017,
Hmm.
and then the album came out in October of that year. And then it's just been a whirlwind of, the last 9 years have just been, we're on our just released our fifth album at the end of last year, and we've literally been all over the world. It's been incredible. So it was kind of it's weird, everything I kind of envisioned in my head of the type of band I wanted to put together. Somehow it kind of it happened, so it's really cool.
And I'm a huge fan of every Midnite City record. And I wanted to talk about the newest one here in a second, but you mentioned like Around the World and everything you guys have been doing. And I was on the Monsters Rock cruise last year, and you guys obviously were on that cruise, and the amount of people that I saw walking around wearing Midnite City shirts was amazing. And I just want to throw out there that you guys you're such a great live band as well. You're not just a studio band. So what can you tell the listeners here about your newest Midnite City release, which is Bite the Bullet? Because I think it's a phenomenal record. So what went into writing that, and how did you pick the single and all that stuff?
Well, I'm glad you like it for a start. That's great. Yeah, I mean, we finished up the last album, In at the Deep End, which came out in 2023, and
Mhm.
that album did really, really well for us. That was like one of our best-selling albums. I think it was our best-selling album up until the new one coming out. And yeah, so we toured a hell of a lot on the back of that album. We went all over the place, including,
Mhm.
like you say, the Monster Rock cruise, and Japan, and Australia, and Brazil, and just all over the place. We had a great time, promoting
Mhm.
that album. And then, to be honest with you, in terms of the actual how we go about, making albums, the process hasn't really changed since the first album. So, I write all the songs, and I do just demo all everything, so I um, get all the songs together, then send the songs to the guys, and then that they work on their parts. And it's pretty much we've worked the last two albums, we've worked in the same studios as well. So a lot of the stuff is done, at home studios, but we also
Mhm.
use a couple of studios here in Nottingham, and put the whole thing together. And it takes us a while to do it, because there's so much goes into each song. Like, you honestly wouldn't believe the amount of files. I've said this in other interviews, that I honestly swear to God think this is true, that I would say, if you look at the stems on one of our songs, there's probably more stems on one of our songs than some bands have on an entire album, because we just go overboard with everything. So it takes us uh a good 3 months to record, because it's
Mhm.
just so much goes into it. Everything is just OTT, everything's double tracked, and you
Mhm.
know just everything is just piled on top of each other, so it's this massive wall of sound. And then um this is the second, so we recorded and produced the album ourselves, and then everything then goes to Chris Laney in Sweden. And
Mhm.
it's the
Yep.
second album we've worked with him on. He also mixed our last album, In at the Deep End. But he is like, I sing his praises all the time, because I honestly do think that he's like the modern day Mutt Lange. I really honestly believe that. So he gets this ridiculous amount of all these files, that then it's his job to kind of to mix the album. So I mean, he must have a hell of a job getting through all that stuff, and making sure everything kind of sits where it should, and stuff like that. But before we start working with Chris, he always kind of asks, well, before I get going, what kind of sound are we going for? Because
Mhm.
the last album, we really put the keyboards up a lot, so it was a really, really keyboard heavy album. So that was kind of like his the starting point for the last album. With this album, we just said we just want it to sound just as big as possible, like the biggest sound you can get, you know.
Mhm.
And honestly, I think we've managed to do that with this album, because I think it's just such a huge sounding album, you know, from right from the drum sound, to just it's just a monstrous album, you know. And yeah, in terms of picking the actual singles, that's always tricky, because there's quite a lot of songs on all our albums. You know, there's so many singles, and it's kind of it's tough to pick them really. But we usually do three, because we usually do three singles and three videos off each album. So we try and get three contrasting songs, you know. So if you've got
Mhm.
one that's a little bit heavier, we always like to put a ballad out there, because we're obviously big, you know, it's hair metal. We've got to have a ballad. And
Always.
then, of course, we try and do, you know. So we went with Heaven in This Hell was the first single, which was
Mhm.
a little bit a little bit darker, a little bit heavier, to kind of really get people's attention. And we shot a really cool video for that. And then the second one was When the Summer Ends, which is just total like pop metal, you know, so
Mhm.
poppy and so hooky. And then the final single was the big ballad off the album, Seeing Is Believing, which again just kind of shows another side to what we do. But honestly, I mean, there could have easily been another three or four singles, you know. And everybody's always, no, this should be the single, that should be the single. So it's always a bit of a nightmare deciding which ones to go with. But yeah, I think we picked the right ones in the end.
So I got to ask this then, because you just said how difficult it is to pick singles and stuff like that, and there's 5 records right now, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
So if somebody who's never heard of Midnite City comes up and says, "Just give me one song that explains who you guys are," would you be able to say, "Listen to this one, and it'll make you want to listen to everything else"? Like, is there a song that comes to mind?
Oh my God, there's a few there's a few songs that come to mind. I think there's a song. It's actually the first song on our first album, a song called "We Belong," which is that's a big song, and it's a big, you know, it's always been, you know, from way back, a big fan favorite. I mean, people have that song title tattooed. We've got it's insane, you know. That means that song kind of means a lot to a lot of people. Our fan club is named after that song as well.
Mm,
So We Belong. But I think off this album, I think the song that really sums up what we do more than anything is probably When the Summer Ends, because it's just so high energy, it's so
mm.
catchy, it's so melodic. It's You watch the video, it's just so much fun, you know. And that's kind of really what the band's all about. I mean, we take what all those amazing bands did in the late 80s, you know, Poison and Warrant and Danger, and, you know, Bon Jovi when they were cool, and, you know, you name a band from that era, we kind of do our version of it. So you know,
Yeah,
if you like any of those bands, you're gonna love Midnite City, really.
for sure. I couldn't agree with that more. And when I have showed your music to people that hadn't yet heard of you, I usually go with Fire Inside.
Oh, great. Yeah, that's a good one.
I love that song. So I could listen to that song every day, all day. It's such a great song. So that's the one that I picked. So I was curious to see what your thoughts were. So when you're writing music, what generally comes first for you? Are you writing a melody? Are you writing a riff? Are you writing lyrics? So what's the first thing that comes to you?
Well, I actually write everything on an acoustic guitar, and it's
Oh,
something that I've always done. Yeah, it's kind of weird. A lot of people are surprised with that, because I think a lot of people just, you know, naturally think you plug into a loud amp and crank it up, and that's how you write. I've written every single song on an acoustic guitar. So
mm,
I think that's kind of, it's just how I started writing when I was a kid. And but I also the reason I do that is I always think that if a song holds up with just one guy and an acoustic guitar, then
mm,
you know you're onto a winner. You know what I mean? Because
mhm.
you can take a really average song and put it in the studio, and don't get me wrong, we throw everything, you know, into our songs, as I said earlier. But, you know, it doesn't matter how many layers of instruments you put on something, if the song isn't good, then the song isn't good, you know. So
Right.
to me, it's always, if I can sit there and play it and listen back to, you know, I'll just into my phone and listen back and actually think that's a great song, then I know that then we take it to the studio and build on it. So usually for me, it usually comes with a melody more than anything, and it's usually, you know, a lot of the times I'll come up with maybe like a chorus idea, and I kind of get that down. And to be honest with you, in terms of riffs and stuff, I'm not a massive riff writer, because a lot of time if it's quite busy riff wise,
Mhm.
then it kind of gets in the way of the melody. You know what I mean? So it's kind of almost like you either have to decide whether, you know, it's a melody thing or a riff thing, and it's a tough one. I mean, obviously, there are some. I mean, on this album, there's the first song on the album, "Live Like You Mean It," is based around a riff,
Mhm.
and there's a couple of others, but it's more about kind of more. My writing's more around chord progressions, and it's all about the melody, you know, and the hook, you know.
Mhm.
So usually it'll be a chorus, or maybe maybe a verse, and then I just sit and just hash it out, you know, just kind of see what happens with it, really. But and then lyrically, whatever's going on in my life at the time, then
Mhm.
and obviously the way a song kind of sounds dictates where you're going to go lyrically, you know. So for
Yeah.
example, like "Live Like You Mean It" off the new album, you know, it's got that riff, it's a bit sleazy, then obviously it's not going to be a love song, you know. It's going to
Right.
be, you know, it's going to be have a bit more attitude about it. And then whatever, like I said, whatever's going on in my life, good or bad, that comes out in the lyrics. And you know, it's kind of really important for me as well. Like I'm very into my lyric writing, and you know, I don't just sit down and just write anything that doesn't mean anything. So you know, to a point where if someone was to say, okay, what is that song about off that album? Who is it written about? I could tell you exactly who it was written about, what
Mhm.
it was written about, you know. So, and I think that's why, again, people really connect to what we're doing, because the songs are real. You know, as I said earlier, we have fans with lyrics and uh, song titles tattooed to their arms and stuff. It's nuts, but I think it's because when you're really honest about what you do, and you're writing about real things, and people kind of, they connect with it, and they kind of see, okay, that's kind of what I'm going through, or you know, that's, you know, and they really connect with what you're saying.
Mhm.
um and the acoustic thing as well. I mean, one of my absolute songwriting idols was Janie Lane,
Yeah.
and I didn't realize until years later, but apparently he wrote all his songs on an acoustic as well.
Oh,
So that kind of spurred me on after that. I'm like, well, if it's good for Janie, it's good for me, you know.
right, right. And, you guys are one of the bands that, you're keeping that flame burning, you're keeping that fire alive with this type of music. And with the industry changing so much over the years all around you, what's keeping you motivated? What's keeping you around the world of music with all these changes?
Yeah, that's a good question. It gets, you know what, it gets harder and harder every year, and you know, a lot of it is, I'm an old guy, you know. I'm not a spring chicken, and I think things used to be a lot better, you know, back in the day. I think we as a band, we're very much against streaming sites
Mhm.
and Spotify and all that kind of crap. I mean, we just don't really agree with any of it. But like you say, in this day and age, it's just the way things are, and
Yeah.
you have to just accept that this is how people, you know. But we're so old school in that, you know. I mean, our new album has just come out on vinyl,
Mhm.
and you know, we put such a lot of effort into not just making an album, but the presentation and making sure it all looks cool, and there's
Yeah.
a color scheme, and there's a theme of each album. And it's so important because, you know, we are very old school in, you know, I remember buying my favorite albums, and just looking at the album and reading the liner notes and stuff. It was really important, you know, and
Yeah.
which is kind of lost on younger kids. But I think we're quite lucky in that most of our fans are kind of older, you know, and
Mhm.
a lot of them, you know, kind of are still into that side of things. So um, we just carry on doing what we're doing because we absolutely we love what we do, and that's it, you know. And it's not, um, you know, we wouldn't want to just, you know, play a different style of music just to you know to be cool or whatever, because and it never works anyway, because people see straight through you if you're not being genuine and honest, you know. And we you know, obviously we'd love to have sold 1 million albums by now, but that's not quite, I don't think that's ever going to happen. But at the same time, you know, we do things that, you know, a lot of our dreams have come true. Like going to Japan, for example, was
Mhm.
just, I mean, that was like a lifelong dream come true for all of us, you know. And we're lucky to do amazing things like the Monsters of Rock cruise,
Yeah.
and go all over the world. And you know, obviously some shows are better than others, but that's just kind of, you know, part of what we, you know, it's just how it is. So I think so long as you believe in what you're doing, and and more than anything, you really enjoy what you're doing, then there's you know, there's no reason to change really.
Absolutely. I agree with that very much. So I guess my follow-up question to that would be for somebody like yourself, what advice are you giving to the next generation who want to do the music that you're doing right now to stick this out?
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. My advice would actually be, you know, stay in school and get a different job, maybe. But I don't know. I mean, I think following music for a career, it's just because of how things are now and how
Mhm.
difficult it is now.
Yeah.
You know, because I grew up in a time when it was, when, you know, it was still about, you know, doing your demos and playing gigs and sending your demos to record labels and hoping like an A&R guy would come out and see you. I mean,
Yeah.
all that's like, you know, long gone. So
Yeah.
so it's really tricky to give advice, because you know, every year it's just, you know, and it is more nowadays. It's so much more about, you know, social media and your online presence than it is about your music a lot of the time, you know, which is really frustrating. You know, it's how many Instagram followers you have. And I mean, don't even get me started on TikTok. I refuse to. I'm way too old to even. That just frightens the hell out of me. So, I draw the line at the TikTok thing. But I think it's difficult. I think for young kids. I think. I mean, I don't think any this music will ever be mainstream again. But I don't
Mhm.
think a lot of music is. You know,
Right.
unless you're you know, Taylor Swift or whoever. I mean, even in
Mhm.
rock bands, it's not. I think more than anything, you've just got to do it because you absolutely love doing it, and it's something. I think it's something that you need to do rather than something that you just enjoy doing. You know, and I think there's a
Mhm.
big difference between that. You know, if it's something that's just, you know, you have, like, if I didn't play music, I mean, I don't know what I'd do. You know,
Mhm.
I mean, it's my life. You know, but I guess, you know, on top of all that, you know, just believe in yourself, and you know, you know, if you think you can make it, then you know, you just go out and show everybody. You know, I mean, that's the key to most of it. I think is just believing in yourself, because you know, if you don't 110% believe in what you're doing, then you can't expect anybody else to kind of buy into it. So it's kind of just having that confidence to just, you know, go out and get it really.
Yeah, no, that's great, solid advice, I think. And before I bring everything back to Midnight City, before I get you out of here, we like to do this thing where we do a lightning round that's just a bunch of random questions for the listeners to just get to know certain things about you. So some of these are going to be really random and have nothing to do with anything, but
Okay.
it's just what we do.
That sounds good. All right.
All right. So first question: are you more of a dinner or dessert person?
Dinner, definitely. Yeah.
All right. If you had to pick, would you choose Poison or Motley Crue?
Poison any day of the week.
I I mean, same. So,
Yeah, good man, good man.
so if you're stranded on a desert island and you could only take 5 records with you, what 5 records you taking?
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. Right. Okay, I'm gonna go with um Def Leppard, Hysteria,
Mm.
Kiss, Crazy Nights,
Oh yeah.
Danger Danger, Screw It. I'm gonna take Poison's Open Up and Say Ah, and I'm gonna probably take Slippery When Wet as well.
I was wondering if you were going to go Bon Jovi or Warrant.
Yeah, or it probably would be number six. If it,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So the next one is always split right down the middle. So let's see how you go with this. Are you going to take Alice Cooper or Ozzy?
Alice Cooper.
All
Yeah,
right, all right.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
So
I was kind of, yeah, I was never a massive Aussie fan, really.
okay,
Not, and I loved the reason I especially said Alice Cooper is because I love the Trash album, which I know
oh,
most Alice Cooper fans probably disown that album, but I
oh,
love that album. Though it was
I was
great.
just, I was just going to say to me that's Alice's best album. So
Oh,
like,
absolutely, yeah, by a
oh
long way. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah,
every song I never skip a song. Never skip a song.
yeah. I'm with you.
All right, next question. Are you a horror movie fan?
I am, yeah, very much
Would
so.
would you take the first Friday the 13th or the first Halloween?
You see, I would take the first Friday the 13th. Yeah,
All right.
I love both, but I was more into Friday the 13th for some
Mhm.
reason. I just yeah, I was a massive Friday the 13th fan. You know, I watched every single one. I mean, I don't know how many movies they got up to. You know, it got ridiculous in the end,
Yeah.
but I loved them all. I thought they were great. Yeah.
Yeah, no, they're all entertaining in their own way, and like Friday the 13th goes all the way up to Jason being in space,
That's right.
or as I like to refer to it, spacing. So
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Yeah. Very good. Very good.
so let's just pretend now that you're very superstitious and you're going through the Bermuda Triangle. Are you going to take a plane or are you going to take a boat, and why?
Hmm. I would take a plane because just the idea of drowning. It's funny actually because I was watching a documentary about the Titanic last week, and just
Mm,
the idea of drowning. I mean, I think if I was gonna, you know, come, you know, if I was gonna come a cropper, I would say I'd probably rather be in a plane. I think it'd be over a bit quicker, maybe.
fair enough. Now let's say talking about music again here for this next one. Do you prefer studio perfection or live energy?
Ooh, that's a really good question. Because I think both are sort of, especially for our music, it's really tricky because if we were kind of like a little bit more of a raw band, then I would go with live energy, and you know we don't need to. But our sound is so polished, you
Mhm.
know, in the studio that everything does have to be perfect. So um, it's really tricky, but I would still go with live energy because that you know we you know as you know we there's a lot of energy goes into our shows and stuff like that.
Yeah,
So it but that would be that's very even for me. It would just about be a tiny bit more towards the live energy, maybe. Yeah.
that's fair. You're actually the first person that I ever asked that question to. So you're
Ah.
setting the bar for everybody else after this. um, do you prefer early mornings or late nights?
Late nights, definitely. Yeah.
So you're on the road, you're touring. Do you prefer on the road food or home cooking?
Oh, home cooking, definitely. Not that
All
I
right.
do any of it. Luckily, my wife does all the cooking. But her cooking's a lot better than on the road. We just got off the road like a week and a half ago, and we've all just been eating absolute garbage. So it's actually nice to get home and have some proper home cooked meals. You know.
Get back on track. Yeah.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, yeah.
All right. So, what is one guilty pleasure song that you have that would shock your fan base to know that you really love this specific song?
Um. Oh, let me think off the top of my head. Um, like I again, as we were talking earlier, I absolutely love pop music.
Mhm.
So I would say something let me think. You put me on the spot here. We'd maybe go with like California Girls by Katy Perry or something like
All
that.
right. All
Yeah,
right. That
I
would
like that.
definitely shock people. That shocked me.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
So how about a final question for the lightning round? What would you consider your favorite horror movie of all time?
But without any shadow of a doubt, The Shining is
Oh,
my,
okay, great
and it's
movie.
kind of, it's more of a, I suppose it's more of a thriller than a horror film, but I still, I mean, as a kid, that movie more than anything just scared the crap out of me more than Freddy or Jason or whoever. It was just
Yep.
something really creepy about that. I thought the idea of just being stranded in a desolate hotel, just losing your mind was just, and it's still, I actually say it's still my all time favorite movie. I just think it's a genius piece of work.
It really is. I agree with that very much. And to bring everything back to Midnight City before we get you out of here, let's talk about what's coming up next for you. So, any tour that you want to mention or specific shows that you want to talk about? Let's get to that.
Yeah, we've got a really busy year coming up. So we just got off a UK tour, like I said, a week and a half ago, which was absolutely brilliant. So we finished that. We've got a few one-off shows coming up. We got a one in a couple of weeks over here, and then we're doing tons of stuff. We're touring again in the UK this summer. In
Mhm.
June, we're going to be going on a co-headlining tour with another band called Sisters Doll, who are coming over from Australia.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so we're doing like a co-headline thing with them, which is going to be fun. And then later on in the year, we've got festivals out in. I'm just trying to think. We play Malmo Melodic in Sweden, which is that looks like a great lineup. We're also doing festival out in Germany, Switzerland. We're all over the place. So
Mhm.
we've got tons coming up this year, and then hopefully next year, there's been talk about us going back to Brazil and hopefully fingers crossed Japan. If everything works out. So, but yeah, we're just really busy this year as well. Like I said, because we just with this new album doing so well, we just want to get out and then play it live and promote it as much as we can.
I want to also point out too that I saw this morning that you were pushing some merchandise, T-shirts, and things like that. So if you could tell everybody where to find that and get that. So I know a lot of people, maybe even in the States, who aren't going to see you on tour want to order some stuff. So where could we go?
Yeah, it just go to our website. It's really easy. It's just midnitecity.com. Yeah, that's great. And yeah, we've got tons of stuff. I mean, we got like I said, the new album's out on neon yellow vinyl, and our label actually put out our first two albums on vinyl as well for the
Mm.
first time. So you can get them. We've got everything. There's about, I think there's like 15 different t-shirt designs and hoodies and baseball caps, you name it. We've got tons of stuff. So yeah, just go over
Excellent.
to midnitecity.com and it's all there.
And can we get you to also plug your social media and the band's social media as well?
Yeah. Well, I'm on both me and the band do everything but TikTok. So my Instagram is just at Wylde Official. Midnite City on Instagram is Midnite City UK, I believe, and then Midnite City UK on Facebook. And again, you can just find me Rob Wylde on Facebook, and we also do Twitter as well, a little. Well, X, sorry, a little bit
Mm.
as well. But yeah, that's it. We're very easy to find. So and we're also, anybody who wants to get in touch with us, you know, we're very interactive with people. So if you send us a message, we'll get straight back to you.
Excellent. Very cool, man. Thank you so much for being here. This was a lot of fun, and you have a great story, and you've had a great career, and it's not over yet. And I'm going to go order a T-shirt.
Oh, good man. Good man. It's been awesome, Robby. Thanks so much for having me, mate. It's been a lot of fun.
All right, man. You take care.
You too, buddy.